Choose one.
Jumping right back into it, in the last video, we just specified the information that we wanted, essentially, right? As well as the base URL. We're going to use this. We're about to use it right now. All right, so let's go ahead and go. So we have our base request, right? And we're going to pipe that information into the request URL query. If this was a more like pure data science extraction course, I'll tell you more about this URL element. Some cool things are happening, but what we're going to do is just specify within the URL, okay, or within our request. Let's call it that, not to make it complicated. Is the original latitude. All we gotta do is just tell it the latitude. Okay, boom. Okay, so that's going to be stored within our request, as well as the longitude. And then from there, within daily, we want to specify the variables that we're going to ask for, and that's called daily variables. From there, if we had to change the city, change the other variables, there's some constant things that are not going to change. And these are the following elements, concepts that are not going to change. For example, we're going to use Fahrenheit. I got to pay close attention for spelling. Height. Okay, that could be something that we would want to change depending on, but I'm not gonna do that here. So in terms of precipitation unit, we're going to specify that as inches. You can specify it as something else, but we don't want to inundate ourselves with too much information. Sorry. And we're going to specify that as inch. Time zone is going to be America, Los Angeles, because that's where I am currently. America / Los Angeles. Okay, that's just a time zone. Los Angeles. Okay, past days. Let's just do 30. You know, and our video is going to do 30. And today's June 13th, so the past 30 days from today. Forecast days, you're going to say 1, and then our delimiter is going to be a comma. Okay, we'll put that in quotations, double quotes, comma. Okay, so again, we're doing it in this format because this is going to stay the same regardless of our request. This is going to change depending on what city we're looking at and what variables we want. Okay, and so we're going to run this. I'm just going to run this, just copy and then paste this here. And then if I actually look at my request currently, my single city request, okay, I'm getting a bunch of information in terms of my my request. So it saved it all as a URL, okay? Saves everything within a URL. And again, if we have more time, I'll explain more about this. But let's see when I click on this. You're gonna see. Hopefully, you see something cool. Okay, let's say open. Yeah. It's giving us an error. That's good. We get to see this an error, time zone error. Okay, as a JSON. This is talking about key value pair. Let me make sure I spelled this right. America. Oh, so nice. So underscore. So let's go ahead and run this again. Okay, run this again. I'm having so much fun. Okay, that's cool. And then let's go ahead and see what the single city says. Boom. And then click on this. Open. That is what I wanted. It gave us the actual data. Okay, it gave us the data. And as you can see, we don't want it as a page on HTML, page. We want it in R. So there's a couple more steps that we need to do. But you can see the request. Okay, you can see the request. And one of the things that we like to do when we make requests is to see, actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. So let's make this formally bring the request into R. Okay. So let's just do request REQ underscore perform. And then when I run this, I don't think I need, okay, I do need to copy, paste this. Now I made the request. And if I see the single city response, it at least tells me my status is okay. We have the information stored in the body, 1,295 bits, and then this is the original URL that we called. Okay, so if you're ever doing a project on something else, you can make changes accordingly, but then you can actually see what it comes out to look like. So this is the request. Okay, this is great. We're gonna parse it and make it look nice. What we saw earlier from the HTML page in a little bit, but one of the common things that people need to do when they make requests is to confirm that the actual request was successful. Like, you got a status 200. You got to, saying that you made a good request. And so what we traditionally do is run the function response status to see that the actual response is what we wanted. If you ever been to a website and gave you a 404 or a 429, those are all bad requests that you've made. Anything with the 4 is something wrong with you. If it starts with a 5, that's something wrong with the server. I think 300 just moves the websites, but that's not for this class. But just be aware that these things exist, and 200 is what we're after when I run this. And that's what we got. Okay, 200. So that's good. So now that we got the request, it's in R. Great, fantastic. We need to parse it. But before we parse it, let's make sure we have some conceptual understanding done. So which earlier objects are reused inside the request URL query? And that's going to be the longitudinal one, and the latitude, and daily variables. So I'm just going to play the game. Copy and paste. We reused the following variables to be able to make our query. Okay, to the database. Okay. And then why are temperature units, precipitation units, time zone, past days, forecast treated as constants? These values, we're going to intentionally make sure that these values are not going to change between cities. Okay, so that's that. We always want Fahrenheit, the ones that we specify. We always want those specified variables, and so we don't necessarily need to change it up or have it as a variable. Okay, so we worked with 3 different elements of the request component, or at least generally speaking, the request component. And let's actually take a moment. You can pause the video and take a moment and answer what these three functions are doing in your own words. So ideally, you took a minute, and specify what these requests specifies. And what you say for requests is that you say creates an HTTR to request object pointed at the base URL. Okay, that base one that we specified earlier up here, right there. That's what we're doing. Up here, right here. From there, what we then did was we modified the URL by adding parameters to it. So attached query parameters so that we can make that request to the URL request to the request URL to narrow what we are asking for. Okay, and then finally, the request perform sends the fully built request to the server over the network. And so in my mind, if I were in your shoes, if you notice something, when I first clicked on that button, when I first clicked on this, it actually brought in the data. And I was thinking to myself, why did it do that? Because that's us actually performing that request performance, right? That's us actually asking the database to do it. When we did it here, we're formally doing it, instead of clicking on it, we're formally doing it within R. I love this stuff. All right, so that's a little bit of a review. In terms of the status 200, what does that indicate? It indicates the request was successful. Okay, so that's that. So there's a lot of there's not that many pieces moving when you break it down, right? So we start off with the request in terms of the URL. We then added parameters to then specify our request, and then we perform the actual request by the we currently have brought in the data. You don't see it, but we did. So with that being the case, let's clean it up a little bit. Let's turn it into a data frame. All right, so this process is going to seem long, but it's not that long. It's only these steps here. Okay, so bear with me. So what we're going to first do is every single time we make a modification, we're going to look at what it says. So remember, in terms of our single city response, it looks something like this. This is fine. I actually had a little bit of a issue, so I'm going to run this again. Sorry, run above again. So I have my response. Okay, good. I think what we were talking about at that state was, okay, the single city response was essentially this, and all our information is in the body. And so notice that before, I think I already said this, I don't know if I did already, but notice that before everything was request, okay, but now everything is going to be response, like the actual response that we're going to receive and parse. So right now, what we're going to do is look at this and convert this body into a string, but it's going to be a string, but in JSON, which is kind of confusing, but that's neither here nor there. You'll see what I mean by that in a moment. Response body string. All right, so I'm going to run this. Okay, copy and then paste, and then when I run this single city JSON, we're going to notice we have our data, but it's like a JSON, yes, but it's still like a string in that there's quotes around each and every line, right? So instead of really bogging down with that, what we're going to do is just convert that into an R list. And the way we do this is by just converting this using from JSON. So from JSON, which is from the actual JSON light package. So when I run this, okay, and I then look at it, view it, it's going to be in a list format. Okay, it's going to be in a list format. In that, it looks a little bit cleaner, right? But I can extract various elements from this list by utilizing the dollar sign. Okay, if I do daily, that's what we're going to eventually take. I can also just do this by get information like Fahrenheit or units. Is it units? Let's do longitude. Yeah, longitude, things that regard. I can extract information, but again, what I'm really after is daily. Okay, I'm really after daily. There's a lot of ways of actually extracting from a list. One of the other ways of doing this is by utilizing these double brackets. If I say 1, it's gonna give me the first thing. If I say 10, it's gonna give me, oh, I don't have 10 things. Let's say number 5. It's going to give me the 5th thing. The things that you can imagine with numbers, it's not reliable if the order changes. So instead of using the number, we're actually going to provide it with the name. So this is daily. So that's going to be what we extract from that first list. And it's going to be a list in and of itself still, but we're getting closer to what we're after. So this is going to be single list. So Control L up. Look at this. You have time, max, min, sum of the precipitation. Okay, so we're there essentially. It's still a list, but all we got to do is run this data frame function to turn that into a data frame. So let's go ahead and do that. The date is not the date, it's really the time. The time is not really the time, it's the date. That's what the API called it, but we're going to call a proper name. From there, we're going to turn that date into a proper format, year, month, date. That's from the LubrDate function, library. We're going to specify the city name as what we did before so that it makes sense when we're labeling our data. And then we're utilizing this before equals 1 to make sure that city name comes first. Okay, city names come first. So when I run this now, rename. Oh, it's not timer, it's time. Okay, so now city comes first. Let's actually look at it here. Okay, city comes first, then date, then the max temp, min temp, then precipitation. Okay. So that's that. We did good. We have the data. So let's answer some questions just so that we can get a general gist of what's going on here. When it comes to explaining what single city is and how it's constructed, single city is just an R list. Okay, it's R list produced by parsing the JSON text. Okay, when I'm referring to this object here. Okay, that's what I'm referring to. This is the list. Okay, list within list. All right, and so then from once we had that information, what is the data type at each step? I like this. So the very first thing that we got to parse, or at least note, is that we had just string. Okay, string in JSON format. So first it's a string in JSON format. Okay, that is this. And then what we then did was convert that into a R list. Okay. In this following format. Okay. Converted it into an R list. Okay. Which was then this. Then we extracted the information we wanted as a data frame. And that is what we did here. Okay. So you want to see it like that. So why do we extract daily specifically? We extract daily specifically so that we can gain access to the data for each day that we want. Okay. So that we can gain access, to the data we requested. Requested. Okay. Y is before equal 1, so that city name is first in the data frame. Okay. In terms of what do the main request URL query arguments control, we can actually able to control a lot more than what was specified here. We could specify different units, the units of the data, but also request all types of data that OpenMedio allows you to request. And that's going back to the documentation, that if you want to get more information, you can. Oh, but you get the point. That is it for this video. We're gonna jump past that last question, and the next I'm almost sure we're going to do it in one video, but talk about map and PMAP, and then finally build the function, right? In terms of getting all the data, get weather data, and then go from there. Okay. So that is that. Thank you for your time. So our information is in the body. Okay, it's fine.